Welcome to Mark Asks number 10. We're back again for another week, and I've got another expert with me. You may recognize her. She's been on once before. I'm back here with EJ Love. Thank you for coming in again, EJ.
Yeah, I love it.
Pleasure to have you. So if you haven't seen EJ's resume from the previous Mark Asks we did, it was fantastic. I'll put the link in the description. Go check it out. EJ is a love and sex coach from here in the Gold Coast, just near where I live here in Brisbane. You've written your book, Becoming the One, which is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. That's in the description. You've coached workshops, not just in Australia, but all around the world. Hundreds, near thousands of one-on-one client sessions where you've helped women heal their love wounds. And it's not, there's a lot of mind in it. It's also through a holistic approach though. It's through their spirituality, through their energy. And it's that whole basically holistic approach to healing those previous wounds, which is very poignant for today's topic. And this fascinated me. I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
We're talking woundmates versus soulmates.
Yeah.
And how to tell the difference in what you're attracting.
Yeah.
So I'm sure every viewer's heard of the term soulmate, but woundmate will be new to a lot of viewers. So do you want to start out, what's a woundmate?
So a woundmate is someone generally who comes in that will trigger you a lot. I don't know if I could swear, but triggers you a lot. And
You do
brings
you.
up.
You do
So
you. Safe space
do
here.
me.
You do you.
It triggers the fuck out of you, basically. And usually it's a very intense connection.
Like chemistry you're talking about.
Full on, like chemistry. So basically, they come in to trigger your deepest wounds, to bring them up for healing. The problem is that people get confused because they think this person is their soulmate, because of the intensity,
Right.
because of the, oh my God, I've never been with
never
someone like
felt
this,
this way
never
before.
felt this way, and it's everything that I hope for. It's the fairy tale, they're saying all the right things, and then the wounds like rejection, abandonment, the fears all start coming up, and that becomes very intense too. And it's this like emotional roller coaster, up and down, like I love, hate, like I love you, I hate you, you're repulsive, attraction, and it's just up and down, on, off. That's a woundmate, basically.
So are woundmates unhealthy for you?
Yes, they're unhealthy, but they can be evolved into soulmates if both people are prepared to do the work.
Okay.
And more often than not, I see that one person is prepared to do the work and the other person is not.
And not the other.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you tell the difference? If a woman's going, oh God, I just felt this great chemistry with this guy, have I just attracted a woundmate? How does she know? How do you coach her to know?
So generally the rule I stand by is fast and intense is a red flag of a woundmate. Fast and intense, like very full on, very fast attachment, that's a sign of a woundmate. Slow and develops over time, and sometimes it might even be a friendship first.
Yep.
Sometimes the people, you may not even be interested in the person, and it grows and develops, and you're staying in a strong connection with yourself and not losing yourself is generally a sign of more of a soulmate connection.
Okay.
Yep.
One thing I talk about, and I haven't expressed it in those terms, is I say sometimes the fastest, it's the fireworks, because I've had this once as well. And there's a recent video, if you haven't seen it, when a dating coach gets ghosted, go and check it out. Crazy chemistry. Still to this day, no idea what happened to her. But I say sometimes it's the ones with the most fireworks that kind of burn out very quickly, while sometimes the ones that sort of start as a small flame become an inferno and they become essentially soulmates. So what's your context of soulmates? It's interesting because this isn't necessarily something that I would directly coach. I would personally coach people. I coach people to great relationships that build them, that grow them. Sometimes those relationships don't last their entire lives. Sometimes they may do. Other times they may last just a few years, and that was the growth that person needed at the time. Other times it could even be shorter. And, I'm sort of, soulmate is a very singular term, whereas, I've met women who have had, say, 2 fantastic marriages. If the first husband's passed away and she's like, I really feel I've had 2 soulmates who added so much to my life in their own ways. How do you think about soulmates?
Yeah, so I think about soulmate as in soulmate energy, that we hold soulmate energy and we attract soulmate energy. And it can be in our friendships, it can be in family, it can be in partnerships, it can be romantically. There's all this kind of soulmate. They can even have soulmate clients, right?
Okay.
And
So you're not like a singular, there's one soulmate to rule them all sort of mindset.
yeah, so I feel like there's so much conditioning on finding the one.
Yeah.
And my book is called Becoming the One, because it's actually about becoming your one for you first. Becoming the one for yourself first.
Right. We didn't mention that EJ went viral. She's been on all the morning shows and things just right around Australia for your ceremony where you said, I'm going to become the one myself.
Yeah, I did a self-marriage ceremony, and some people might prefer to call it a self-love commitment ceremony.
Yeah.
And I do these for women on a regular basis who work with me. At the end, we'll celebrate with a self-love commitment ceremony. And it's really beautiful because it is about being a partner for yourself first, rather than looking at, I need this person to complete me. So I feel like with the soulmate, it's like actually becoming your own soulmate first is what's really important. And knowing that you're already whole, that you're already complete, and you're not looking for someone else to complete you, because you're not half a soul. You're a whole soul. No one's half a soul. It's you're a whole soul. And from that place, then you can actually attract someone that's also a whole soul. Yeah.
Does this at all relate to, we talked in a previous interview about healing your inner masculine, which is something a lot of women go, well, I'm a woman, I don't want to heal my masculine. Does this also relate to that? You need to heal that to be your whole soul? How does that relate to the soulmate?
Yeah, so I think it's, I think ultimately we're already a whole soul. It's really like unlearning the conditioning that tells us that we're not.
Okay. Right, which is the soulmate conditioning. You need to find the one to be happy and have your wedding ceremony. It's the common conditioning.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like with the masculine feminine, it's not about being more masculine or being more feminine. It's about evolving and integrating both within self. And then when you're in a partnership with a man or a woman, you're going to be going in and out of masculine, feminine. So it's not about the man's going to be masculine and I'm going to be feminine. It's like sometimes he's going to be masculine and sometimes he's going to be feminine, and then we'll play with that. Whereas what I'm seeing in a lot of woundmate connections is you generally will have one person that tends to be in like a really more immature masculine energy and one person that's in a more wounded feminine energy. And then you're polarizing each other, which then creates that chemistry and all those happy chemicals, which we think are love. And that's the woundmate. Woundmate's all about happy chemicals, about your serotonin, your dopamine. And it's an oxytocin, and those are, we think, oh, I'm so in love with this person and I've only just met them and I don't know why. Okay. It's like, no, that's oxytocin, right? Yeah.
How could I, if I'm in that situation, or if a woman's in a situation where she says, I had this one guy, or in my case, this one girl, in retrospect, how can we look back on that and say, okay, if that was a wound mate, what would you say to me, or how can I use this for the future? This information that I might have attracted this person.
Yeah, right. So with the wound mate, it's like, what did it bring up for you? Is looking at when someone gets ghosted, or when you got ghosted, was there feelings that it brought up? Did it bring up things like rejection or abandonment or confusion, or what if there was anything that came up? And generally I find with my clients there'll be stuff like frustration and upset and confusion, things of like, oh, what did I do wrong, or like what's going on, like. And these kind of things that will be brought up. That is the purpose of the wound mate.
Wouldn't you get those same things if a soulmate abandoned you? Aren't those natural responses to anyone you care about disappearing?
So with like a more soulmate connection, it will be much more gentler, and generally you would work through, like generally you probably wouldn't attract someone that abandoned you if they were a soulmate connection. It will be much more gentler, and it will help you to work through it more easily.
Not this.
And not the strong intensity, right? Yeah. And I also feel like we're consistently attracting wound mates, and it's whether we choose to kind of go into that intensity or take our time. And like when someone wants to move fast, it's like, no, I actually need to take this slow. Yeah. So I have time to process my feelings and what's coming up.
Yeah, and I work with clients where some of them, maybe they haven't had a relationship for a while, and they meet a guy who treats them very well, and the guy wants to go really fast. And I sort of imagine it like a train whooshes past you at like 100 kilometers an hour. And the woman is kind of like, oh, do I kind of just grab on and go with him? Yeah. Or do I sort of try to grab, but also put the brakes on the whole time. And the worry is if they put the brakes on, he will lose interest because you're kind of giving him some negative signs and he'll lose interest. And it's really important that they do that. And I use the terminology of sticking to your own timeline.
Yeah, perfect.
Which is like, you have a timeline, you're allowed to fall in love at your own speed. And if a guy wants to run at 100 kilometers an hour, and if you putting the brakes on means that he falls off the tracks or disappears up the road, you have to let him
for sure
run up the road. Because every time you kind of go, all right, I'll jump in and go for the ride, I've never seen healthy outcomes or good outcomes. Would you agree? Is that your sort of experience? Yeah.
And I believe that if a man is interested and does value you, he will wait. Like, I feel like the experiences that I've personally had and my clients have personally had, if a man wants to go fast, it's a red flag. It's also common narcissistic red flag.
Behavior. Because that's where we come into love bombing. And you talk about this quite a bit in your book because you're sort of a survivor of this. You've been through it. We had H.G. Tudor on the first Mark Ask. So if you want to know more about narcissism, that interview blew my mind. He's a very greater elite narcissist, very self-aware, and basically spends his life teaching empaths. You've touched on this in your book as well. Is that a really common pattern that maybe the empathic woman attracts the woundmate narcissist? Is that a common...
Yeah, so empathic and codependent. So codependence will usually... So it's like when you're seeking love and approval outside of yourself, like a narcissist comes in and love bombs you and gives you all the love and approval. And it's so easy.
So you'll depend on him for it. And then it's like he's got you hooked and you're dependent on that validation. So when he takes it away... he now has you coming to him for it, right?
Yeah. And so I have a whole chapter in my book on narcissism, codependency, and empaths. I mean, narcissism is through the whole book, but particularly around those. And again, they're wound mates. That's the polarity, right? Yeah. So usually a lot around the wound of abandonment and rejection and not being wanted is usually the one that like a narcissist work with. Is like, so as soon as you start healing the abandonment wound, then like the stuff, the red flags of the narcissist is just not going to work on anymore.
Not work.
Yeah.
So what do you say to a woman who says, oh, it was love at first sight? I just knew the chemistry was there. Do you sort of say, you want to be careful here? Do you say, look, that's always going to be a wound mate, or it's probably a wound mate? Or do you kind of say, look, just be careful? Or I think it's complicated by the fact that every now and then I've met a woman where, they say it was love at first sight and here they are 10 years later, 5 years later, married. Those are rare, though, and more often the woman who says it's love at first sight, you kind of don't hear what happens at the end because, it didn't actually go so well, and people don't tell those stories, right, when love at first sight goes wrong. So what do you say if a client comes to you and says, you know what, this guy's treating me great, he's finally the person who hasn't treated me like my toxic exes. I think this is instant love. This is love at first sight. Your advice?
My first question is, what healing have you done between after the toxic relationship and now?
Great.
Right. What healing have you done? Have you healed yourself from the past? Because if you've not healed yourself, you're going to keep attracting wound mates until you heal it, basically. And might be in different ways. But ultimately, it's like, how is the relationship with yourself is the question. Do you feel like you have a really happy, healthy, whole relationship with yourself? Or are you still feeling quite like you haven't healed your past wounds and there's still some healing that needs to be done? And sometimes, in relationships, in healthy relationships, you're always gonna get triggered because that's the human brain, right? Yeah. But it's like, how do you manage those triggers and do you communicate about it? Most people that go through these love at first sight relationships end up in some kind of codependency.
Yeah,
right.
That's been my experience too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we're conditioned for codependency. Like we're conditioned for wound mate relationships. Like the movies like The Notebook, which was still one of my favorite movies to this day. It's codependency. It's wound mate. It's like this twin flame twin flame concept. It's all.
And that's that's what a lot of this twin flame stuff, where that crazy chemistry is there. We were kind of talking about this before the interview. Is like a lot of that can often be wound mates.
Oh yeah, like most of it, like
Most twin flames.
yes,
Woundmates.
which gives the drive, because there's so much devastation and confusion, usually because the person is feeling abandoned and rejected, and that's it's a woundmate. And but I believe that this whole twin flame concept is to actually wake people up so they become their own soulmate. So then they attract their soulmate.
Their real
Yeah,
soulmate
or like
or
soulmates.
soulmates.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if you're currently in a relationship with what you suspect might be a wound mate, what can that woman do next? Or what can she do to hopefully be one of the exceptions that does turn it into a soulmate?
Well, to really start looking at what are the wounds that are coming up, like what are the triggers, what is coming up. I explore a lot of this in my book, and ideally my book is about evolving the wound mate into soulmate, and whether it's yourself or with another person. And so with that, it's really about looking at those wounds and starting to explore healing them. And then if in the partnership, it's like, is the other person willing to do the same? Are they willing to work on some of the stuff that you trigger in them? Because ultimately these triggers and these wounds are being triggered are an access to your deepest healing and access to deepening self-love. When you have two people that love themselves first in a relationship, that is going to be a healthy, non-codependent relationship. And communicating about it is key. Communicating openly about, like, consciously about, well, these are the things that trigger me and I want to work through this, and how can we support each other?
So are wound mates actually a necessary part of the process to finding a soulmate? Like, if you don't have these wound mates, will these areas ever have a light shone on them?
Yeah, I think wound mates are a gift. I think they're a blessing. And I think, when we see them like that, it shows us, like what's next in line to be healed.
Right. So it's not necessarily about, per se, staying single until you find a soulmate. It could actually be having to attract a wound mate to have that highlighted. Right.
Yeah, and it's how you deal with the wounds and the triggers that will keep
Will
evolving.
determine your ultimate, I guess, health in your relationships and your success. Yeah.
Yep, and I've definitely seen wound mate connections evolved
Yeah, okay.
into soulmate ones.
Right.
Yeah, evolved where they've both really done the work.
Have you got a little success story of that happening that you could share?
Like, I usually work with mostly single people, but there are definitely a few that I like quite. There's quite a few actually like that. Yeah, that they have worked through it and evolved, because a lot of they just have some tools to use.
Okay.
It can shift everything, and both of them being committed. Yeah, except if one's
except
if one's a narcissist, then you need to get the hell out.
Yeah, well, that was something HG said. He said, you know what? We're not capable of love. We can go to therapy sometimes and we can woo the therapist, but we're not. We're just doing it so we can get more of our own needs met. Yeah. So that's a thing to be. If the wound mate is a narcissist,
Get out.
doesn't matter.
Get the fuck out.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, well, we laugh, but that's real.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's not like I've been there like so many times, but it's like, it's.
What can people do if they want to find out more about this process?
Yeah,
You've got the book, obviously.
Yeah, I've got the book. The book would be the best start. And I have a free program with that as well. It's just like a short 5-day program that people can get some videos to help them as well. So
you're also in my Facebook group too.
I am.
Yep, you're in my Facebook group, so come say hi to me and EJ in the Facebook group. Thank you so much for coming in. That was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I find that I'm learning something from every single one of these interviews. I'm sure the viewers are learning heaps themselves. So thank you so much for coming in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Comments, thoughts, questions for EJ. I'm sure she'll be happy to come on and answer a couple. Put them in the section below and let me know if there's another topic you'd like me to get EJ for with Mark Us to talk about. So yeah, hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed the content. Big subscribe button there with the little bell as well, and hit the like button. And yeah, EJ, thank you so much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Amazing content. I love your stuff. I love it.
Thank you. The same goes for you. The feeling's mutual.
Thank you. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.